He's the College Game Day host. And Game Day is in Waco this Saturday. It's Oklahoma and number 13 Baylor. Game Day at 9 a.m. Eastern on ESPN. And then they have a game on ABC at 7:30 Eastern. Rece Davis joins us. So, Rece, let's start with the important question. Have you ever been mad?
The answer to that question, Dan, is yes. On many occasions, most recently, something went wrong on the show. I don't want to say exactly what it was for fear of embarrassing a valued, trusted friend and colleague, but I let him know in no uncertain terms in the moment that I was less than pleased. Yes.
What did Herb Street do?
It was later. I yell at him all the time. It wasn't him.
When you looked at the rank, when you're doing this show last night and you're doing it in real time, with the reveal, what kind of goes, oh boy, all right, I'm surprised at that. Was there a moment last night where you felt like, okay, didn't expect that?
No, not really, because I did expect LSU to be number one, and it was funny. I had set the over-under for Minnesota at number 8, and as the day went on yesterday, I thought, you know what? That might be too low, and as it turns out, they fell right at 8. So I wouldn't say anything really surprised me, other than the fact, just a mild surprise, that Oklahoma slipped again, and that both of the Pac-12 teams appear to be in much better shape than the Big Ten overall. Than the Big 12, than the Big 12 overall. Not that that's surprising, but the fact that there hardly seems to be a path for the Big 12 champion absent a whole bunch of teams losing in front of them to end up making it to the playoff.
I was wondering that yes, Alabama lost at home. They came back and made that a great game. But you did lose to the now number one team in the country. Should you fall as far as Alabama did? If you think they're that good to begin with, and they did lose to now the number one team, it's not like they lost to South Carolina. They lost to LSU. I thought Alabama should be 4. I still think they're one of the 4 best teams. I know this all plays out, Rece, but do you follow my logic that we sometimes give you a whole lot of credit for a win like that and maybe not enough credit for a loss like that?
I agree with you. But I think here's the problem for Alabama. I think just losing the game opened up a deeper look into their resume. I think most people agree with you that at least watch the games, that they are probably one of the 4 best teams. But they aren't as good and they aren't as complete a team as they've been in recent years. Their defense is just not, by Alabama standards, very good. It's good by average standards in college football, but I mean they had a very poor defensive performance on Saturday. Much of that was caused because LSU's offense is excellent. That's for sure. I think that the fact that they lost the game opened up a little deeper look into their resume, and just by bad luck for Alabama, there's not much there. Their non-conference typically, includes a Florida State and SC. In Michigan this year, it's Duke. Texas A&M hasn't been as good as anticipated. South Carolina was one of their crossover games. They've been, absent, or apart from the win at Georgia, they've been a near disaster. So, they don't have much on the resume, and that's why I think it's going to be hard for them to wind up in the 4 unless a bunch of teams lose and sort of hand it to them and leave the committee with no other choice but then to put Alabama in.
Pac-12 has a little bit of an opening here with Oregon and Utah, but they're going to cancel each other out eventually, aren't they?
They both need each other to go into that Pac-12 championship game with one loss. And Oregon could also use a boost from Auburn winning a couple of games, beating Alabama and Georgia. They have both of those left on their schedule, both of them in Jordan-Hare. But I think the Pac-12 has a decent shot at this, Dan. I really do, because the only way the SEC gets 2 in is if, one loss Georgia beats LSU and you get Georgia and LSU in the field. I'd say the only way. I guess the other Alabama scenario exists. But if you have one loss Pac-12 teams playing each other for the championship and you have just one team from the SEC, I think the Pac-12 champion, particularly if it's Oregon, has a really good path to the playoffs. So, yeah, I think there's a terrific chance. And on top of that, I think Oregon's pretty good. I think they would be most deserving. I think Utah Utah's been really efficient on offense, and their quarterback, Tyler Huntley's played really well. But defense is where they really make their hay. They've got a tremendous defensive front with a lot of guys that are going to be playing in the NFL.
And you have people, we're talking to Rece Davis from ESPN's College Game Day. You know, everybody, the part of this, the ranking show is to get people fired up, and you want people who are angry, and you want college football to be a topic right now. Right. And I understand that. And that's why I always tell people to calm down. You can have fun with it, but if you know, like Minnesota, we're going to have PJ Fleck on next hour. I don't know if he's angry or disappointed. You know, you got to beat Iowa. You can't be worried about where you are right now. And then you got Wisconsin. And then if you get to the Big Ten title, if you win, you're going into the playoffs because you will have earned this. And that's why you got to tamp it down. This isn't what you want to hear because you want ratings for this show. I'm telling people, just relax. It's all going to play out.
Well, Dan, sort of back to your very first question of our visit here about getting mad, I say the same thing. I think it's interesting and fun and compelling, and it gives you a reflection of how those 13 people are thinking, but it's not a finished product. And they don't evaluate the things like the conference championships, which I question how much of a factor that should be anyway, because the conferences aren't the same. But they don't evaluate that until those things are won, and that's at the end. And, you know, on the subject of Minnesota, I even brought up last night, Minnesota is in such a good position, in my judgment. They could afford a loss to Iowa, but then if they come back and beat Wisconsin and then win the Big Ten championship game, presumably against Ohio State, they're going. So I can't imagine being in a better position in terms of determining your own fate than Minnesota is right now. If you're not one of those top 3 undefeated teams, then being number 8 and undefeated and having those types of games in front of you is a really good position for Minnesota to be in.
Do you think the committee would rather see LSU-Alabama rematch or LSU-Ohio State Joe Burrow rematch against his former school?
I think the committee does its best to try to avoid thinking about such things, but there is going to be an absolute family program crap storm if it's LSU-Alabama rematch. Unless everybody else has lost 2, and it's like, well, what else are you going to do? And everybody kind of understands it. I got to believe if they're human, they don't want that, okay. And it would be great theater. And I'm not saying that don't misunderstand that. I don't think that will influence their decisions because I think they really try hard to avoid that type of thing. I have respect for their honor and integrity of trying to do the right thing. You know, they can't penalize a team because they don't want to see a rematch. But at the same time, if you injected them with truth serum, they'd probably rather not have that. But the Joe Burrow versus Ohio State, which was not the quarterback rematch we anticipated the preseason. We thought Justin Fields against Georgia, which could still happen, or Jalen against Alabama, which is unlikely to happen unless it happens in a Sugar Bowl or something. Those are the types of things I think we expected, and we may wind up with Joe Burrow against Ohio State, which would just be fascinating theater. That's as close as I think I've heard you swear. You said crap. Is crap storm allowed on your show? I don't know. Oh yeah. It's totally cleared. Yeah, totally cleared by the censors. Best college town for eating is where? Ooh, that's best college town for eating. I'm going to say Baton Rouge, I guess, because there are several good options there. I'll tell you an underrated one too. I don't think it's really a college town, but College Game Days went there a couple of weeks ago. Memphis is really good, too. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Can't go wrong with that. Hey, great to talk to you, Rece. Hope you're well, and tell the boys we said hello, and we'll be watching this weekend. All right, sounds good, Dan. Great talking to you. That's Rece Davis.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.